Good morning, Rain. Oh, goodness. Good morning, Rain. Good morning, Aiden. Good morning, Jean. Good morning, Donovan. Good morning, Miss Graham. I can't see anybody. Am I showing the wrong screen, guys? Yep. Sorry, guys. Uh I'm sure the thing that's on our attendance is so off. We haven't updated that in like 3,000 years. That's why I'm not supposed to be sharing it. We've just been doing attendance on this. Sorry about that. No, 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 Rain. Like, I totally understand. I'd panic if I accidentally saw it too. That was like probably from the second marking period when we were trying to figure out what was going on with grades, and then we never fixed, we never took it out. Facts. I'm just gonna go ahead and scrap that now. Good morning, Cody. Happy Thursday, guys. It's almost Friday. Good morning, Cody.
Howdy. Good morning, guys. I am here.
Guys, I'm gonna disappear off camera for 30 seconds. I need tissue.
I saw that look on your face.
I'm like, I'm telling you, the pollen demons have not stopped possessing me. I was so sick yesterday. Guys, like, because I was doing grades this morning. We've only got 3 more assignments left.
Mm-hmm.
No, we're done.
And
We're
then we're
done.
all done.
We're all done. We'll probably get started in like I'm figure give everybody like 2 or 3 more minutes to try to get in. But guys, if you want to get yourself set up, the first link will take you to the Nearpod. Um, so pardon me, we only read page 1 of chapter 1. Um, I'm actually just thinking for consistency and coherency, we may just read through it again today. Um, so that I can post today's class video under for people who aren't able to attend class so they get all of chapter 1. So I guess yesterday was just like a fun little sneak preview.
Fair.
I mean, it's actually not due until tomorrow anyway, so. Girl, I got my inhaler too, right here. I took it before class.
Rough out here. It's rough.
Yeah, so guys, just ignore Miss Graham and I dying as is real. Pollen is a problem.
It's so bad. I'm trying so hard.
I get it. Look, my face. This is not my natural color. It's not supposed to be the same color as my background. Like, it's been bothering me. I was like, I want to change my background, but I love that color. But I'm like so mad my skin is currently the same color as the background.
That's so funny. I should change mine to be like summer. Summer soon.
It is soon. I may change it. I have some cute ones. I'll share them with you.
Yay!
But guys, as I was saying, I did put it in the chat and I will put our links in again. The first link is for the Nearpod. The second link is where you guys, like, we did take some notes yesterday on page 1 of chapter 1. We did get a theme. I think we talked about poverty in class because we talked about he was basically born into poverty. And then we did one symbol. I forget what we did for this symbol. Somebody had a really good one. But this is what I'm talking about, these notes. Oh, okay, we did the symbol of the workhouse to symbolize poverty. I forgot about that. Oh, okay, Cody, you knew. I think it was yours that you came up with that. And I was like, oh yeah, that's fantastic. All right,
That
so guys,
flourish.
basically, as we read today, your job is going to be if something pops out to you, try not to wait until the end because if you're anything like me, a really good one will come into your head and then 30 seconds later, we're like 2 pages in and you're like, oh man, I forget what that was. So,
Yeah.
it
Write it as
was
you go.
Grace. Yeah, write it as you go, and then we'll discuss it before we move on to the next chapter. And then, like, even if you're like, hey, pause, I'm trying to write something, like, Miss Graham and I don't mind pausing to get, like, to give you a second. Just be like, pause in the chat. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. So again, I just kind of pulled that up to let you know, but we are on chapter 1. Um, do you want to do how we do it usually, Miss Graham, where I read a page, you read a page?
Yeah, I feel like that's easiest.
Okay, so then I will start again with page one. So, or I'm sorry, chapter one. So we have treats of the place where Oliver Twist was born and of the circumstances attending his birth. Among other public buildings in a certain town, which for many reasons it will be prudent to refrain from mentioning, and to which I will assign no fictitious name, there is one anciently common to most towns, great or small, to wit, a workhouse, and in this workhouse was born, on a day and date which I need not trouble myself to repeat, inasmuch as it can be of no possible consequence to the reader, in this stage of business at all events, the item of mortality, whose name is prefixed to the head of this chapter. So, again, talking about Oliver Twist. For a long time, it was ushered into this world of sorrow and trouble by the parish surgeon. It remained a matter of considerable doubt whether the child would survive to bear any name at all, in which case it is somewhat more than probable that these memoirs would never have appeared, or if they had, that being comprised within a couple of pages, they would have possessed the inestimable merit of being the most concise and faithful specimen of biography extant in the literature of any age or country. Although I'm not disposed to maintain that being born in a workhouse is in itself the most fortunate and enviable circumstance that can possibly befall a human being, I do mean to say that in this particular instance, it was the best thing for Oliver Twist that could have possibly occurred. The fact is that there was considerable difficulty in inducing Oliver to take upon himself the office of respiration, a troublesome practice, but one which custom has rendered necessary to our easy existence, and for some time he lay gasping on a little flock mattress, rather unequally poised between this world and the next, the balance being decidedly in favor of the latter. Now, if during this brief period Oliver had been surrounded by careful grandmothers, anxious aunts, experienced nurses, and doctors of profound wisdom, he would most inevitably and indubitably have been killed in no time. There being nobody by, however, but an old pauper woman, who was rendered rather misty by an unwonted allowance of beer, and a parish surgeon who did such matters by contract, Oliver and nature fought out the point between them. The result was that, after a few struggles, Oliver breathed, sneezed, and proceeded to advertise the inmates of the workhouse the fact of a new burden having been imposed upon the parish, by setting up as loud a cry as could reasonably have been expected from a male infant who had not been possessed of that very useful appendage, a voice, for much longer space of time than 3 minutes and a quarter. As Oliver gave this first proof of the free and proper action of his lungs, the patchwork coverlet which was carelessly flung over the iron bedstead rustled, the pale face of a young woman was raised feebly from the pillow, and a faint voice imperfectly articulated the words, "Let me see the child and die."
The surgeon had been sitting with his face, wow, turned towards the fire, giving the palms of his hands a warm and a rub alternately. As the young woman spoke, he rose and, advancing to the bed's head, said with more kindness than might have been expected of him, "Oh, you must not talk about dying yet." "Lord bless her dear heart, no," interposed the nurse, hastily depositing in her pocket a green glass bottle, the contents of which she had been tasting in a corner with evident satisfaction. "Lord bless her dear heart, when she has lived as long as I have, sir, and had 13 children of her own, and all of 'em dead except two, and them in the workus with me, she'll know better than to take on it that way. Bless her dear heart. Think what it is to be a mother. There's a dear young lamb due." Apparently, this consolatory perspective of a mother's prospects failed in producing its due effect. The patient shook her head and stretched out her hand towards the child. The surgeon deposited it in her arms. She imprinted her cold white lips passionately on its forehead, passed her hands over her face, gazed wildly round, shuddered, fell back, and died. They chafed her breast, hands, and temples, but the blood had stopped forever. They talked of hope and comfort. They had been strangers too long. It's all over, Mrs. Thingummy, said the surgeon at last. Ah, poor dear, so it is, said the nurse, picking up the cork of the green bottle which had fallen out on the pillow as she stooped to take up the child. Poor dear. You needn't mind sending up to me if the child cries, nurse, said the surgeon, putting on his gloves with great deliberation. It's very likely it will be troublesome. Give it a little gruel if it is. He put on his hat and pausing by the bedside on his way to the door, added, She was a good-looking girl, too. Where did she come from? She was brought here last night, replied the old woman, by the overseer's order. She was found lying in the street. She had walked some distance, for her shoes were worn to pieces, but where she came from or where she was going to, nobody knows. The surgeon leaned over the body and raised the left hand. The old story, he said, shaking his head. No wedding ring, I see. Ah, good night. The medical gentleman walked away to dinner, and the nurse, having once more applied herself to the green bottle, sat down on a low chair before the fire and proceeded to dress the infant. What an excellent example of power to dress young Oliver Twist was! Wrapped in the blanket which had hitherto formed his only covering, he might have been the child of a nobleman or a beggar. It would have been hard for the haughtiest stranger to have associated him, his proper station in society.
But now that he was enveloped in the old calico robes which had grown yellow in the same service, he was badged and ticketed and fell into his place at once. A parish child, the orphan of a workhouse, the humble half-starved drudge to be cuffed and buffeted through the world, despised by all and pitied by none. Oliver cried lustily. If he could have known that he was an orphan left to the tender mercies of church wardens and overseers, perhaps he would have cried the louder. Okay, guys. So again, did you guys come up with anything for themes or symbols? Okay, Cody, I see you said the mother being found in the street shows poverty. Guys, I actually believe our Q&A discussion is actually so I believe if it's not tomorrow's assignment, then it's the one, no, not the one that's due tomorrow, but the one that's due after that is based on this quote right here at the end. What an excellent example of the power of dress young Oliver Twist was. So, guys, you'll see that authors like Dickens will very much focus on the types of clothing that people were wearing. French authors at the time did the same thing because clothing was a distinct example of your class. So, what you were wearing told everybody else whether or not you were worthy of existence, essentially. Okay, so it talks about where he was wrapped in the blanket. Okay, you couldn't have told it, like, you wouldn't have been able to tell if he was the child of a nobleman or the child of a poor person because all infants get wrapped in blankets usually immediately after they're born. Sometimes the blankets are old because they belong to the family for a long time or are an heirloom or things like that. But then what's really important is when he comes down here and it says, but now that he was enveloped in the old calico robes, which had grown yellow in the same service. Okay, so it's basically saying the moment that he's put in this other outfit, a robe that's old, it's yellow, it might even be moldy. It says he was badged and ticketed and fell into his place at once. Like it's almost like getting a stamp on your back that says you're an orphan. Okay, and that's what the clothing does. So guys, clothing is going to be an important symbol and part of the theme of poverty and class.
Yeah, I also want to add whenever they were talking about the child in general, was it when I was reading? They talk about, well, Charles Dickens talks about the child in a way that's very like product, so it's very much a symbol kind of like industrialization. Like I'm trying to think of where it was besides the ticketing, which was a big part, but there was a part where just the way that they deal with this kid is very like foreign, like treated like an object kind of. I'm trying to find the exact part. Yeah, the way that he's like the surgeon deposited it in her arms. It's like the way that he writes about the way that they're handling this child is very interesting.
Yeah, guys, and actually to also go back on what Miss Graham said about like how they're talking about the child, I definitely agree. It's definitely very like industrial in a way. Like he's not being treated as if he's like this precious thing. Guys, there's
Hmm.
also kind of another interesting part. So the woman who's supposed to be taking care of the mother is drinking heavily. If you
Yep.
did not pick up on that, okay? So you also have to kind of think about the fact that like, she's not in a hospital where she's being taken care of and they're doing something to prevent her death. And when she says that she's going to die, the woman who's taking care of her is just like, oh no. Like, but it's literally like she's so drunk that she can't actually tell that the woman is dying. Which is also kind of very indicative of the conditions of the the place that they're in, this workhouse. And guys, we're also going to see throughout all of her twists that there are changes in speech between sort of upper middle class people and lower class. So for example, the surgeon, like you can see he kind of speaks in normal English where he says, "Oh, you must not talk about dying yet." Whereas the way that the like sort of nurse speaks, this is going to sound terrible, guys. I'm terrible at a British accent. But like
Mm.
if you were to hear this, it'd be like, Lord bless her dear heart when she's lived as long as I have, sir. It sounds a little southern, again, terrible
I
southern
know. I
accent.
was like, I'm kind of reading this Southern and I don't know why, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And dead except two, and they're in the wackest with me. She'll know better than to take on in that way, dear bless her heart. All right. Like that's how they would have said. It's not good, but
That's
that's
good.
how she would have
That
sounded.
was good. That was good.
It takes me a minute to get into it. And it's like, think what it is to be a mother. There's a dear young man do. Like they would have talked very what we would interpret as very strangely in comparison to the surgeon, who would have had like a more proper British accent. Okay, so we can talk about accents. We have the everyday workers accent versus upper class accents, which are very different. So that could be a symbol
Yeah.
also
I
falling
think
under our
also the way the
themes.
surgeon talks versus the old woman is very different.
Well, that's what I was saying because he would have been middle class because he's
Yeah, yeah.
trained, he would have had education, whereas she does it because she's been a mother, where she says like 13 times. And guys, also notice where she says, and had 13 children of her own, and all them dead except two. Like she's just casually like, yeah, I had 13 kids, but all of them died except for two. Like she just let that out. Which is kind of wild. Like no one these days would brag about having 13 children, all of them dead except two.
Yeah.
Um,
They also talk about Oliver as it. Like the narrator says he, but the narrator, I'm pretty sure up till this point is still the only voice that's saying he. everyone's calling the baby an it, which is at this point in time when this was written very objectifying. So again, baby is being treated like an object.
And guys, part of the reason that it's being treated like an object is because poor people essentially were treated like objects. They were seen as a burden to society versus contributors to society. And so when they talk about, again, guys, like this is clothing comes up again here in this part where it says she was brought here last night by the overseer's order. She was found lying in the street. And then it says, for her shoes were worn to pieces. Okay, like somebody who's upper class, their shoes would not have been worn to pieces and they wouldn't have been walking so far they collapsed in the street. So they basically know they're not looking for somebody who's like lost, some wealthy person's like lost daughter or anything. They're basically like, this woman is trash and now she's brought her additional trash into our workhouse. And so now we have an extra mouth to feed, and it can't even contribute because it is a baby. Before we go to the next thing in the Nearpod, and Cody, what you wrote, I didn't read through all of it because again, we'll read it when we go to grade the discussion, but you're pretty much on track. I forget exactly what the assignment says, but yeah. Okay. Sue. All right. So guys, we did this yesterday and we just talked about it now. Okay, so real quick, guys, make a prediction. What do you think is going to happen in chapter two? What do you think we're going to be reading about, learning about? And guys, if you don't, oh yeah, Cody, I did forget to mention to everybody, you did have that like your symbols of respiration. So yeah, it shows signs of life, possibly no matter what kind of family you're born into. Rich or poor, breathing is something we all do. That was definitely a good one. So I will share that one with everybody as well. And again, if you can't answer this prediction question in the Nearpod, or you're trying not to go all over the place, you can also answer it in the chat and I will put it in the chat. Ooh. And Shanae, so sorry, I didn't see you popped in, so I'm going to share the links with you. So if you didn't have the Nearpod or the link to the reading or the notes, again, I'm putting it in the chat right now. Okay, so Cody said, you think we'll start to see more of what happens at this orphanage that Oliver is going to? Maybe the older lady takes care of him, or who knows? Who knows is actually an excellent part of that prediction. Love that, Cody. You do never know what will happen when Charles Dickens is writing the story. There are many plot twists. Donovan, you said, I think chapter two will delve deeper into the themes of suffering and the overall injustices of society. Pardon me. My
Oh,
nose heard suffering, and the pollen decided to speak for itself. But indeed, I think that's a really wonderful prediction. Especially continuing with talking about injustices of society. We'll continue to see the early life continue to unfold, whether it be good or whether it be bad is yet to be determined. Oh, I like how you phrase that. Yeah.
you're not wrong there. The injustices of society.
Just get deeper. Rain, Shanae, are you guys working on a prediction? It's okay if you were like, I'm not doing that right this second if you were working on your other thing. I just don't want to go on without you.
My nose is so runny.
You're still thinking, Shanae. Okay, we'll give you time to think. No worries.
I need to grab more tissues. Sorry, hold on.
No problem. Shanae, where are you in your thinking process? Would it be easier if we just started chapter two? No worries, Shanae. I just didn't want to rush you, but because I know, listen, you can see Miss Grimm and I are dying from allergies today. Like I get it. Sometimes your brain just isn't braining. So, guys, we will move into chapter two, and okay.
Yes.
So the title of chapter tighter. Make me trade this again.
What?
Speaking like a muppet.
The traits, the title of chapter 2 is Treats of Oliver Twist, Growth, Education, and Board. Yeehaw.
Okay. And guys, when it says board, okay, it's talking about like room and board where you are given a designated space and how are you getting your food. So for the next 8 or 10 months, Oliver was the victim of a systematic course of treachery and deception. Guys, let that first line sink in. 8 or 10 months, he was the victim of a systematic course of treachery and deception. He was brought up by hand. The hungry and destitute situation of the infant orphan was duly reported by the workhouse authorities to the parish authorities. Cody, like you said, oh Lord Donovan, it does not sound good. No, indeed. The parish authorities inquired with dignity of the workhouse authorities whether there was no female then domiciled in the house who was in a situation to impart to Oliver Twist the consolation and nourishment of which he stood in need. Okay, so guys, the when it says the authority, it's okay. So we have the church that's sort of working with the people at the workhouse. So the workhouse is like, here is Oliver Twist to the church, and the church is like, no. You already have Oliver Twist. He is yours. And they're like, no. You please take care of him. And they're like, isn't there a young woman, guys, when it says female who is in a situation to impart to Oliver Twist, they're asking, is there another woman who is currently breastfeeding a child? Okay, like they want to know, is there somebody who's already a mother that can then sort of mother this child? So the workhouse authorities replied with humility that there was not. Upon this, the parish authorities magnanimously and humanely resolved that Oliver should be farmed, or in other words, that he should be dispatched to a branch workhouse some 3 miles off, where 20 or 30 other juvenile offenders against the poor laws rolled about the floor all day. All right, guys, let's talk about that. Right? So, because they can't find a breastfeeding mother for him, they think that the best solution to, yeah. So, guys, when it says juvie for poor laws, that means that most of these children, he has children, okay? And
Yeah.
we're talking about like not teenagers when it says juvenile. We're talking about like probably as young as 10, possibly even younger, who have stolen something, most likely. Okay. Now, are there some of them who are like actual maybe juvenile offenders who are like stealing things like silver? Maybe. Main thing that they're stealing, though, typically is food. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's going to be dispatched to basically this other workhouse with the juvenile offenders, and it says they rolled about the floor all day. So guys, if you've ever seen like unsupervised children, okay, like honestly here, like imagine a class like first or second graders with no teacher and no parents, and you just walk in and it's like there's a kid standing on the desk. There's somebody under the table just literally rolling on the floor. I've seen it. Okay. So that's what they're talking about. Like,
Yeah. I've seen my
pretty
middle schoolers
much,
do it. I step out
yes,
for a
pretty,
minute, I walk into the classroom, there's a kid on the floor laying down. I'm like, what are you doing? Why?
yeah. So guys,
Floor's
think about
dirty.
the what are you doing? Why? That's these children. Okay, so they're not necessarily like criminal. They're not like how
They're
we would
just
see
being kids.
criminal. They're just
Yeah.
being kids.
And just remember
Exactly.
too, like Charles Dickens' dad was like in jail for not being able to pay his debt because he's so poor. So I feel like that's another part of like the juvie stuff. Like they were just so poor they couldn't pay their bills, but like obviously Oliver Twist couldn't afford anything. He was an orphan. He didn't have parents to pay anything for him, so nobody could pay for him. So he was the one punished,
Right.
which is insane.
And guys, like it gets even wilder. It says, without the inconvenience of too much food. Okay, so guys, think about that sentence. Okay, like there he's describing it as if you have too much food, it's an inconvenience. So like being poor is convenient, starving is convenient, right?
Starving convenient, yeah.
Or and it
The
says without the
opposite.
inconvenience not of too much food only, but of too much clothing. So like they have just the right amount of food, just the right amount of clothing, or do they? Question mark.
Question mark.
Under the parental superintendence of an elderly female who received the culprits and for the consideration of 7 pence halfpenny per small head per week. 7 pence halfpenny. Hold on. Okay, 7 pence halfpenny's worth per week is a good round diet for a child. And a great deal may be got for 7 pence halfpenny, quite enough to overload its stomach and make it uncomfortable. Okay, so what they're what they're basically saying here, guys, is that she gets stipend to buy them clothes and food. It's 7.5 cents. But it says that's enough to overload its stomach and make it uncomfortable. So, guys, we have to kind of think about correction. Right? So, if she's receiving enough for them to be well fed, but then but the elderly female was a woman of wisdom and experience, and she knew what was good for children, and she had a very accurate perception of what was good for herself. So she appropriated an East Dole the greater part of the weekly stipend to her own use and consigned the rising parochial generation to an even shorter allowance than was originally provided for them, thereby finding in the lowest depths a deeper still and proving herself a very great experimental philosopher. So, Cody, I didn't quite understand what to the children meant. Like, guys, I think I kind of, if you're confused about what's happening here, guys, think about uh okay, so like when guys, when parents get divorced, and then like usually if the kids primarily live with the mother, I forget what it's called, Miss Graham, help my poor brain.
When they
What's that
primarily live
called?
with the mother.
Well, if the kids primarily live with and then the father has to pay child support,
Child
that's
support.
it.
Okay.
Think of the word child
You just
support.
had to
So,
work
guys,
through that. Okay, got it.
okay, so y'all, she is getting essentially paid child support for all of these kids. She gets 7.5 cents. Okay, it's coming from the government, or in this case, it could be like church people who pay tithes and who contribute to the church. So guys, this could be like donation money, but whatever it is, it's child support. So she's getting 7.5 cents of child support for each of these kids, and then she's like, nah, 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 nah. They don't need 7.5 cents each. I could use some of that money for me. Maybe I would like to have double dinner tonight. Maybe I would like to get a new outfit in 3 or 4 months. Okay. And so she's like, well, as long as they're not totally starved and totally naked, it's good. I'm going to use that money for myself. So yeah, she's using the child support not for the children, but for herself. I would definitely say that's a good versus evil. Because in one sense, she's supposed to be seen as good. She's supposed to be a good woman taking care of orphan children. But yet we see that she has an evil side, that she's not even taking the money that's supposed to be used for the children for to give them food and clothing, and heaven forbid a little treat once in a while. Like, guys, like, think about how many times as a kid, like, mom, can I have a piece of candy, can I have a new toy? Like, we've got zero toys going on in this situation, no pieces of candy. Guys, if
So
these kids
sad.
saw a piece of candy and got to lick it, I think they might have passed out from pure joy. They would have been so confused.
It is so sad.
And it's very sad. So yeah, lots going on there. So we have everybody knows the story of another experimental philosopher who had a great theory about a horse being able to live without eating. So guys, oh wait, hold on. Now we're getting even darker. Why are we talking about a philosopher who has a theory about a horse being able to live without eating? And who demonstrated it so well that he had got his own horse down to a straw a day. So guys, think about how much horses eat. Right.
A
So
lot.
instead of eating as much as the horse says, he's getting one straw a day, and would unquestionably have rendered him a very spirited and rapacious animal on nothing at all if he had not died. Born 20 hours before he was to have his first comfortable bait of air. Unfortunately, for the experimental philosophy of the female to whose protecting care Oliver Twist was delivered over, a similar result usually attended the operation of her system. So, guys, she is experimenting on the children in the same way this guy experimented on his horse. He wanted to see if he could get his horse down to living on one straw a day, and whoops a daisy, the horse had died. And now it's saying a similar result death usually attended the operation of her system. For at the very moment when the child had contrived to exist upon the smallest possible portion of the weakest possible food, it did perversely happen in 8.5 cases out of 10 that it either sickened from want and cold. Okay. So, guys, here's all the miseries befalling the children. They're so malnourished that they get sick from being malnourished. Yeah. 8 out of 10 died because they either got sick from hunger and just cold. Because, guys, they heated their houses like with fires back then. Coal for the fire was expensive. And clearly, this woman isn't spending anything extra to make anyone comfortable. Yeah. Or fell into the fire from neglect. Because do recall, y'all, that these children are just childrening all over the place, rolling on the floor, doing what they want to do. And so, you got a curious little kindergarten dude, and he's like, "Oh, look how bright it is! I'm on fire." Okay, like this is what's happening, or got half smothered by accident. Okay, so maybe the kids are playing a little too hard. There's a little chubby dude. The little chubby dude starts playing with the little sickly dude, and the chubby dude pins the little sickly dude down to the ground, and he can't breathe, and thus he dies. In any
Oh,
one of
sad.
which cases, the miserable little being was usually summoned, this summoned into another world, and there gathered to the fathers it had never known in this. So, guys, note that most of this is being seen to this woman as a positive thing. Because if they die, then they get to see their dead mothers and fathers up in heaven. Yay. Occasionally, when there was some more than usually interesting inquest upon a perished child who had been overlooked in turning up a bedstead or inadvertently scalded to death. Okay, guys, because they use boiling water for food to clean things. So So Daisy, a little boiling water poured on a poor little child. Now he's dead. There happened to be a washing through. The latter accident was very scarce. Anything approaching to a washing being of rare occurrence in the farm. The jury would take it into their heads to ask troublesome questions, or the parishioners would rebelliously affix their signatures to a remonstrance. Okay, so guys, it's basically saying that even if a kid dies and there's an inquest, like guys, so guys, an inquest is an investigation. So it's saying, like, if they found these children, when it said who had been overlooked and turning up a bedstead, so guys, that like maybe they just left the dead child in the bed. Okay. Then it's saying that when they would do this, it said the jury would ask troublesome questions. Okay, so it means like they're asking, like, okay, so why did that happen? Like, why did the child die? Like, how did it end up dead in the bed? How did it end up dead in the fire? How did it end up? So apparently, these are troublesome questions. Okay, it says, or the parishioners. So, guys, this is the church people who are giving to the church, who are the ones most likely providing some of the money that's going to these children. Like they would file, like, guys, a remonstrance is like a petition saying, like, we don't approve of this and we don't approve of how this is being handled, and somebody do something about it. But, guys, it says these impertinences were speedily checked by the evidence of the surgeon. Okay, so guys, now you have to think about, like, okay, so an autopsy is done. Who does the autopsy? The surgeon. And the surgeon says, probably would have died anyway. And it says in the testimony of the beadle. So, guys, this is like a church person as well. The former of whom had always opened the body and found nothing inside. Oh, well, he would have died anyway, which was very probable indeed. And the latter of whom invariably swore whatever the parish wanted. Okay, so the beadle's like, we'll do whatever you want. Right, so the surgeon and the beadle are just making up stuff to make the problem of these pesky people asking about the children's deaths go away. Oh, guys, it is 9:51. So I do have to go. I have to get to my middle schoolers
Yes.
who are
Bye,
probably rolling on
guys.
the floor.
We'll continue. Well, yeah, we will continue this tomorrow. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.